Hey everybody, welcome to another video review. I got something pretty special for you. It's been a while since I've done one of these, since I've been in the mood really to get back to talking about my collectibles, but I think this is a nice way to restart a little bit. Maybe I can do a little bit more regular reviews. I got so much to kind of talk about, so many cool things, and I've also kind of been just so busy with work and real life and been a little bit under the weather, so today is one of the rare times where I just feel the energy, you know, to kind of go back and get back in the saddle doing the reviews. So what is this piece? This is one of the rarest prop replicas, if you're into this type of thing, from Lucasfilm and Indiana Jones. This is the Urn of Nurhachi prop replica. It's a officially licensed replica from the company Regal robot, as you can see. And this Urn of Nurhachi is from Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. It's a numbered edition, 48, I believe, of only 150 made. This is a resin replica, and I like to review it. I think, believe it or not, in terms of, like, you know, the fan YouTube video or whatever, there's like only one video of this out there. I forgot his name, but you know, he did an unboxing, really cool. He was so excited, by the way, to get this. So I figured this would be nice to kind of put up there as well, because there's just so few YouTube videos of this in the flesh, so to speak. This is a 4K, you know, YouTube video, so hopefully it'll load that way as well. It comes with a nice certificate of authenticity. I'm going to take a look at this. You can pause it at any time, so you can take a look at as well. You can see that this is indeed a numbered edition of 150 pieces, signed by Tom Spina, or is it Spina? He's the founder of Regal Robot in New York, so very classy. So it comes with this little certificate as well as the envelope. When I got the envelope, this was actually, yeah, you know, like sealed, and it took me quite a while to gently open it up without tearing it to bits. So in any case, I'll put this aside. The story behind how I got it. So a little bit of background. I mean, this was the first prop replica that Regal Robot licensed and announced and, you know, pre-ordered and created when they obtained the Indiana Jones official license. So there's been like other versions of this available, but unlicensed and unofficial. I guess you can find them on Etsy or, you know, various forums. It's not like an easy replica to make accurately, because, you know, in the movie, this is supposed to be all made out of jade, and you don't see it, you know, very clearly in the movie. You know, it just kind of flashes in front of you, and the bottom half of it is very, very dark. I don't know whether it's dark because that's just sort of like the way they decided to paint it, or whether maybe it's dark because it's supposed to show the ashes at the bottom. I don't know enough about jade jewelry to comment on whether this type of transition between the darker color inferiorly and then the more classic jade color up top is normal or natural, whether such a thing adds more value to the jade piece. But in any case, the original, you know, conceit is that this urn is supposed to be made out of jade. And so you have to kind of try to recreate that effect from resin, obviously. And that's not that easy, I think, to replicate. And so some of these, you know, unofficial replicas look pretty good. But the reason this is such a monumental thing is that this is the very first time that an officially licensed replica, was made available, and the Regal robot team was given access to the original prop, which they could then, obviously laser scan and work with, so that this is, at least technically supposed to be the most accurate prop replica up until now, because it's the first one where, again, and the actual prop was used to make it. At least that's my understanding in any case. So this was, again, their first release, and it sold out, I think, really, really quickly. I don't know, because obviously I wasn't there. I wish I was, but I think it sold out within minutes or something like that. And one of the things that Regal Robot often does is the number you get literally is first come, first serve, because they limit it to such a small number. It's pretty easy to keep track of 150 orders. And so the number you get is not random. As those of you who are collectors know, the vast majority of collectibles, the number you get is completely random. If they make them in batches, and the numbers again are random, so say number 1,355 could literally have been the very first batch that was made. But in this case, all of these pieces are made in the United States. They're not made in Chinese factories, so there's a lot more control. And again, with smaller numbers, it's a lot easier to keep a track of. And so you actually did get the number where that correlates to your placing line and when you ordered. So 48, the original owner obviously was the 48th person to put in the pre-order. And after it sold out, its value basically skyrocketed on the secondary market. I think it's like, I want to say its initial price was something like $500 or something like that. I think it was like $500. It was a few $100s. I just remember that. But again, its price skyrocketed very, very quickly. And it's been a couple of years since this long sold out. And you basically never, ever see this thing on sale. That's not a surprise. Again, they only made 150 of these. But even on like a big platform like eBay, you just never see it, let alone, let's just say Facebook, Marketplace, or the forums of the Regal Robot forums. It just doesn't happen. And when it does come up, it sells for an astronomical figure. And so I became aware of this, and I'm one of those guys as a collector. You guys know what I mean. As a collector, sometimes I just like stuff that's rare, right? It's kind of like the soul of a collector is to kind of covet or desire something that nobody else has. I think the collectors out there who are watching this kind of know what I'm talking about. But to be fair, I'm also a really big, of course, Indiana Jones fan. A lot of us who are into the old classics and Star Wars and whatnot, of course, are into Indiana Jones. And this was always one of the coolest things that I remember from watching the movie. I always remember Lao Che, sort of, like how excited he was, right? When the urn finally, came to him, and he kind of was shaking as he picked it up, and he said, Nurhachi, the first emperor of the Manchu dynasty, right? And you have to read the subtext, but it's quite evident that this was so important to him because he is one of the descendants, right, of Nurhachi. So that's why it has special significance to him, right? Holding essentially the founder of your line, the first emperor of the Manchu dynasty, who defeated the Ming dynasty and then established the Qing dynasty, which is the last dynasty of China before China fell to the communists and entered the modern world. So the ashes in this urn of that first emperor in the mythology of Indiana Jones is so important, right? It's so there's kind of that shine to it, so to speak. So that's the context of how important this thing is in the movie. And of course, it kicks off a extraordinarily memorable action sequence that really kind of gets the blood pumping, and it never ever stops, in Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom movie. And so it's definitely something I would have loved to get, but I didn't know about it until much later. And so I just put a saved search on eBay, like many people do, not really ever expecting to see it, because it shows up like, honestly, once a year, if that, maybe not even that. It just doesn't show up very often. And lo and behold, sometimes I wake up late, but a lot of times I do wake up early, sometimes before 7 in the morning. And as many people do, the first thing I do when I wake up is just check my emails to see if anything important came through. And this Nurhachi popped up. Now, as you know, when you do eBay searches and you save them, a lot of times what pops up is just nonsense, right? Like the unofficial stuff, Etsy, or just dumb stuff. It's not really what you want, but the search engine just kind of sends you the email because it just kind of shows everything, right? So you can imagine my shock when I, open up the link and it actually showed the actual Regal robot urn of Nurhachi. And this was like unopened. Like it's literally like sealed in original packaging, sealed in the original box, never opened from the seller. The seller like sells comic books and other stuff. They're like a professional store. But I get the feeling that this was actually bought for personal reasons by the proprietor or something like that. But in any case, I think the price was something in the neighborhood of like $2,000, which sounds like a ridiculous price for something like this. And of course, it is. But it wasn't like outrageous. This was kind of, I feel like it was the going rate. And there was a best offer. But when you see something like this come up and you just, at a certain point, there's so few of these, it's almost like the seller can just name their price, right? And so I could have submitted a best offer and gone back and forth, but I felt like I was probably one of the first to see the auction. And I had to just make some calculations. Like obviously the high price was going to prevent the vast majority of people from buying it. No matter how cool or rare this thing is, there are of course only so many people willing to spend that much money to obtain it. And you can argue that most of those people have already bought it. But at the same time, I was one of the first to see it. It had only been, listed on eBay for I think an hour or so. And so again, I had to do my calculations. And in the end, I decided not to haggle, not to put in offers. I felt that this was a low enough price that it was worthwhile. And so I just bought it, buy it now. And I got it, So that's kind of the saga behind how I obtained one of the rarest Regal robot prop replicas in their entire line, and the inaugural Indiana Jones prop. Since then they made the Sankara stones, they've made the Thuggy knife, that was the most recent release. They've also made the Holy Grail, the urn, not the urn, the gold idol. So they made quite a bit of stuff. But none of them as limited a number as this. And in my opinion, of course, none of those are quite as cool as this. They learned, I think, from this release that the demand was way higher than they thought. And so subsequent Indiana Jones replicas definitely had much higher limitations. And so not quite as hard to get. And so therefore not quite as desirable in terms of collectability, and of course cheaper to obtain as well. So the granddaddy of them all in terms of Indiana Jones, I think collectibles remains this piece. So I'm gonna put this aside. This came like this, wrapped. So very nice. You can kind of see the background, the map, right, where the planes are flying. It shows how Indiana Jones travels from one part of the world to another. So that's kind of the backdrop. And then, nicely printed, nothing too fancy. It would have been nice if they put down the actual limitation. So instead of just a 48, we could see 48 out of 150, for instance. You can see the Lucasfilm LTD at the bottom. So yeah, it's a little bit weird that they decided to put the 48 there and then give you the actual limitation in the certificate of authenticity down here. So now getting to the actual urn itself, it comes in 3 pieces. The packaging, in my opinion, was a little bit crude. Regal Robot is like a, for everything and all the success they've had, they're still very much, I think, a mom and pop, sort of business. And again, their production is all in the United States. When I opened the box, it certainly didn't, or maybe it's just because I'm used to the larger companies like Prime One Studios or Sideshow or whatever, where they, contract with companies in China. So the packaging is a lot more professional, a lot more, kind of automated almost. But here I felt that the packaging was okay. It wasn't like the foam cutout was, the foam wasn't super high quality. The cutout wasn't very, exact. It really felt like the good old days of the garage kit days where, these guys would just do the best they could to protect it. There was just bubble wrap and whatnot. So, that was definitely a limitation. And it came in 3 pieces. Okay, so of course the paperwork in that comes separately, but it comes with the base, and then it comes with the actual urn of Nurhachi, which includes the actual urn itself, and then the lid comes off, believe it or not. Okay, so we'll get into that a little bit later, but a couple of interesting things. So I'm going to move this gently aside for now. But as you can see, the base actually comes with this little black felt. Why? I have no idea. If you take a look down here, really cool. It has some felt pads, which is nice. So you have this sort of, wooden walnut base, very casual, very classy. And then it has this sort of black felt. And I guess the idea is to do it so that you don't scratch the bottom of this. So you're supposed to put it kind of, in general, line it up with where the black felt's supposed to be. But honestly, this isn't actually real jade. It's not like a precious, stone or anything like that. It's just resin. And so the resin doesn't exactly scratch very easily. I can imagine the felt for something like a glass or something like that, or very fine, jewelry, or if it really was jade, I kind of get it. But it's not. And so you just have a piece of resin, which definitely doesn't scratch very often. And when you put the felt there, you just make it a little bit more unstable. You know what I'm saying? Versus everything being just smooth wood, putting that felt on there introduces a little bit of stability. And for better or for worse, this urn is pretty narrow. It is prone to falling over. You can really easily break this. If you want to transport it, you really should take it apart and take it in separate pieces and then finally put it together. And God forbid, I live in California in earthquake country. If there's an earthquake, then this puppy is definitely falling over. So I have to kind of think about what best to do. But it doesn't have, as you can see, the widest base. It's pretty narrow here. And so it does tend to wobble a little bit. So that's something kind of to think about. And then of course you just have the beautiful urn itself. So I'm just going to kind of do this type of close-up. At 4K, the 4K camera on my iPhone 15, has limitations. Macro does not really work very well. It seems like it has a hard time getting macro and still maintaining a 4K quality. So I've learned that through trial and error. And if I want to do macro, it'll default to the 1080p HD. So in the interest of making this a 4K, I'm just going to keep it at about this distance. I've learned over time that this is kind of the optimum distance to still have clarity. And so you can see the beautiful flowers and rose petals adorning the urn. It has appropriate weathering, as you would expect for something that's thousands of years old. So it's not completely new. You can see kind of the different colorations and, you know, age within the details of the petals. It's worn away. There's some dirt. Again, I have no idea why this is so dark here. By the way, you know, in terms of screen accuracy, all of these are like handmade and hand painted, but I do feel like they could have been a little bit more screen accurate. If you look at these stills from the movie, you can see that the bottom part is way darker and further up in the actual prop itself. But you know, again, for those of you who have not had the chance to really see this in person, and this is again the second YouTube video ever made of this collectible, I'm just going real slow, moving it around so you can definitely appreciate the details of this replica. So you can see there's another flower right here. There's flowers on both sides and both ends of the urn. Okay, so you can see the petals, and then you can kind of appreciate again the different colorations and leaves carved into the urn inferiorly. Now moving to the top, you have the lid, and on this lid is a Chinese phoenix. The Chinese name is Fen Huang, and it is a mythological bird, the king of all the birds in Chinese mythology. It's a very interesting animal. It is like an amalgamation of many different animals, you know, and it varies depending on what you read. One source says that a Fen Huang has the beak of a rooster and the face of a swallow, the neck of a snake. It has the body of a turtle, which you can actually clearly appreciate here, the hind legs of a stag, and the tail of a fish. And you can definitely see the fish here. The lid is intricately made. You can see the different details of the scales, right? Of the tail of the fish and the feathers, and you know, it has another rose held in its beak. So in case you were wondering, that's what this creature is on the lid. And if you were to, for instance, take this thing off, you will see that indeed it is hollow. You could actually put things in there, whether it's water or real ashes, I don't know, but it's definitely hollow, and it can offer like another kind of vulnerability where, you know, this thing could fall off and you could break it. So it actually is legitimately a pretty delicate piece, and you know, it is indented, so you know, you can put it in, but you can go in either direction. You can actually turn it 180, but if you look at the stills very carefully, this is the correct orientation to put the lid. So I think it's a pretty darn good replica, obviously, of the original piece, and maybe like custom versions are a little bit better, but they'll never be as accurate, obviously. And you know, like custom ones can be maybe better quality, better resin, definitely better paint job, but the accuracy will always be a little bit off, since this is a direct copy of the actual prop used in the movie. That's one of the advantages of having a licensed piece. And the fact that it's licensed in and of itself is a really big deal, because you know, obviously that ends an air of legitimacy to this piece. That's why you can get like an Etsy, you know, version of this for like $100 or $200, but this is like now $2,000 and is sold out in minutes at an MSRP of I think $400 or $500. So, you know, there you go. I mean, obviously I'm over the moon, happy with it. You know, having something like this, it was just a real kind of thrill to open up a sealed, you know, urn. The only, I guess, downside is, you know, because this is handmade, there are certain small imperfections, which, you know, you can easily explain away as this is supposed to be a several thousand-year-old relic. But one of the things that was a little bit disappointing, and I definitely don't believe that it had anything to do with the shipping or whatever, is that when they made it in China, you know, at the very bottom, it is a little bit, you know, oh, I'm sorry, they didn't make it in China, they made it in the US, right? That's one of the things that Regal Robot is very proud of, is that you know, their products are made in the United States. But this is a little bit of shoddy quality, in my opinion. This should have been painted away a little bit nicer. Again, this is not real jade, it's resin. And so, you know, this is one of those things that kind of happened at their factory. Again, my feeling is a lot of these pieces are almost like slightly more, you know, advanced than just the old garage kit days. But I mean, there's really no excuse for this. And again, this came out of their factory, I'm sure, like this. I mean, it didn't even scratch out. I mean, there's no scratch or damage. It was just basically coloration and a bit of a sloppy paint job because, you know, of course, when you display it, you never ever see that part. But I was a little bit disappointed to kind of see that. You know, I mean, if it's made in the USA and that's supposed to be a mark of pride, and it's one of the justifications for you charging a higher premium price because you're not working with overseas factories, whether it's in China or Korea, for instance, then, and you're only making 150 of them, then I think that it's fair for me to ask for a little bit better quality control, right? So I think my slight nitpicks of the piece would be that, and that could just be my version. There could be, for all I know, many other urns that didn't have that paint defect, but there's that. And my feeling that the felt on this base was really not necessary and just introduces one more potential area of instability in what is already a kind of a fragile, rather unstable collectible. I feel like the paint could have been a little bit more accurate. It could have been darker green and covered more of the urn as the stills of the movie show. And at some custom versions, their paint actually also is more accurate and reflects that from the stills. But, you know, those are small nitpicks. Again, this is the only licensed replica of the urn of Nurhachi that was made. And so, you know, you kind of have to put this next to each other. There you go. And here we have it. Trying to hold it a little bit more. It's kind of hard to see much detail, but I think this is a nice, yeah, perfect distance for you to kind of appreciate all of those details, especially of the Fan Huang. So there we have it. There you go. Hope that you enjoyed this, because again, this is a great collectible, and there just really isn't anything out there on YouTube for those of you who don't own it in person to kind of, you know, appreciate it. So again, for those of you who don't have the Regal Robot Urn of Nurhachi, here it is in all its glory, all of its weathered glory. And I think they did a decent job kind of recreating the jade appearance, because again, this is all resin, keep in mind. Number 48 out of 150. I'm gonna load this up in the next couple of days. So yeah, this is my first YouTube collectible review in some months. And I hope that that was something that was, you know, reasonably cool to wait for. Until next time, do take care.